Where's it?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon.
Hello, everybody. Just takes us a couple seconds to navigate through all the people.
Yep. Okay, so go ahead while we're getting started, if you want to go ahead and type your name, your email address, your campus, your role, and what brings you here in the chat, that would be fantastic. The chat is going to be going directly to the host only right now, so we're going to change that setting. Okay. And that way we will keep this as secure as possible. And Jan is here. Jan will go ahead and type the questions that you have or comments into the general chat. She'll transfer those in for you.
Ooh, smart. I like that.
Yeah.
Eldav.
Okay.
All right. I think we can get started.
We know who Eldav is?
I think we're okay.
Okay. All right.
We'll keep an eye on it. All right. So again, grateful to have you all here in this time that we're living in, which is very surreal sometimes.
It's definitely surreal. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Accessibility Training on Canvas. My name is Josh Miller. I am the Communication Studies Department Chair. I have a bright light above my head. It's actually a skylight, so I'm trying not to blind anybody. This is our best room in the house. Anyways, I am a Communication Studies Department Chair at Los Angeles Valley College, and in our district we have 9 campuses. I'm one of our 9 Guided Pathways coordinators, and I also work a lot with Canvas. I am I evaluate and I review other people's courses. I've done all kinds of training on it, and I'm getting really into accessibility because it's important and it's the law. So I'm here to help you out with all of this. Welcome. Jan, you want to talk about yourself a little bit and I'll share the screen?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Jan Connell and one of our 3CSN coordinators. 3CSN meaning the California Community College Success Network. I'll be monitoring the chat and making sure that if there are questions, they get to Josh's attention. Thank you.
Yeah, so we've had some issues with people trying to get in and Zoom bomb and things like that. So our communication will only be chat based, and you'll only be sending your chat to one person. So it won't be displayed to everybody, and that will be shared with me. But what I will do is that as I go through sections, I will pause in those sections to make sure I don't move on before we get your questions covered. Then we'll also have time at the end to answer your questions if you have any. Okay. So do you want to cover this, or do you want me to cover this, Jan? I'll cover it. So, so welcome. You know, we're here on behalf of 3CSN. We're grateful that you're here. We've been fortunate since we started here about, I don't know, was it 5-6 weeks now? It's been a while. We've had many thousands of people show up for our training, and we're excited to have you.
It's been 8 weeks.
8 weeks. Wow.
Yeah.
8 weeks. So I think I started 6 weeks ago. The bottom line is, you know, this is a theory of change in a time of change. I mean, all of our lives are completely upended and they've changed. Our students' lives have changed. And this is about, I guess, in many ways, embracing that. And hopefully we can, you know, learn how to make our material more accessible for our students that need it. And ultimately, the goal of all of this is not just for students that need accessibility content, but for all students. So the bottom line of all of this is greater student success. Community agreements. So a lot of this is, it's a little bit different now. I think we're going to update this PowerPoint. We've had some issues the last week or two, but the bottom line is if you have questions, I will pause, type them into the chat, and we'll get to you. All right, so for this session, our specific learning goal, I'm just going to move this out of the way, whoops, is Okay, so our specific learning goal for this session is to introduce you to the basics of accessibility on Canvas. So just a heads up, we're not going to be focusing on websites, PDFs, documents, PowerPoint, all that kind of stuff. But for all of them, the concepts are the same. So for example, if you're using, if a student who is visually impaired needs to use a reading type of device, a lot of them, like there's one called JAWS, if they need that and you understand the concepts that they would need for that device to work on Canvas, you'll understand how it also works on a PDF or a document or something. So that's kind of the point of all of this, is understanding the concepts. So a lot of this can be intimidating, and I understand that, but once you understand what you're supposed to be looking for, then it becomes actually pretty easy. And as you're developing your course content, you can make it accessible at the same time. Okay, so what we're focused on today. First of all, captioning. So Zoom, YouTube, 3C Media. The bottom line of all of this is that all video needs to be captioned, okay? And that's extremely important. So if you are going to embed material into your course, all of that material needs to be captioned. So if you're going to create your own material, you can do what we're doing right here. You can set up a Zoom session, and then from that you can have, I don't know if you know this, but you can record it and you can have it transcribed. And so you can have a fully captioned video. So if you're the type of person that wants to lecture and have your students, you know, see you, which is something I like to do, you can do it on Zoom right here. And you can do something like what I'm doing. Say for example, it takes a little bit of work to make PDFs accessible, but one of the things that you can do is I have a PowerPoint. I have a PowerPoint right here, and I am showing you the slide. I'm talking through the slides. I'm being recorded, and I'm being transcribed all at once. So I technically would meet accessibility, because it's accessible for the students that can't hear because it's captioned, but for also the students that can't see because it's transcribed. Okay, you can read through it. So, YouTube, if you're going to use any videos from YouTube, you have to make sure, be careful on YouTube, because a lot of the videos, so for example, you use TED Talks or something, not all of those are fully transcribed. So make sure that your videos are. I've seen a bunch of courses where I've evaluated them, and either A, they're not transcribed well, or B, they're not transcribed at all. So make sure that you do that. And there is a way you can actually check. I'm not going to get into YouTube today, but if you go into YouTube and type in what you want and then go into the settings function, you can click a button and then it will show you how to get fully, if I have time, I will at the end, but it will show you videos that are fully captioned. If you're not aware of it, there's something called 3C Media. So if you do have videos of yourself, so for example, you don't want to use Zoom, maybe you had something from the past, or maybe you just want to record yourself in the class, you can do that on Zoom, but also if you look up 3C Media, you can set up an account, upload your video to 3C Media, and it takes them a little while, but they'll get you back your video captioned. And what's nice about that is a lot of campuses now, and yours may not have it, I'll show you this feature in a little bit, they have a little kind of pull down, it's like a little V that you might have 3C Media already embedded into your Canvas shell, and it'll access your account and you can pull your videos right in. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do website URLs, headers, paragraphs, tables, color contrast, alt text, course design, and Canvas accessibility features. Now, I'm not going to get into detail in all of these. I'm going to do the best I can. We only have an hour, less than an hour now. But again, I hope that you can get some insight into what to look for. So a lot of this information you can Google. So let's say, for example, you know that you need to have headers. Well, if you just look up, how do I create headers on Canvas if you miss it? Or how do I create headers on a PDF or something else in case you miss it? But also, in case you missed it, we do have recordings of all of these videos. So if you ever want to go back, and I've done past videos as well on accessibility. So you may access all of this information, and you can just pause it and figure it all out. Okay? Are there any questions?
Not yet.
Great. Okay, so let's go to my Canvas page. Okay, so welcome to my Canvas page. So this is an older shell. So if some of you, I recognize a couple of people, if you've seen some of my older shell, you'll see that I have a different home page, but this works well. Okay, so you're looking at this page. What you have to recognize is that when a student who cannot see, is accessing this page, you know, they cannot see any of this content. So there is a reader that will read them through this content. So every bit of information has to be tagged in a way that will allow the reader to, the program, I guess I should say, the program to read it accurately for the students. So if you scroll down here, you see I have kind of a quote here. I have a video here. I have some links here, and I have a picture here. And then I have like kind of headers here. All of this information has to be, it has to be made accessible to your students. How do you do it? So you have your page, you have your content. What you do is you go to this button here called Edit. My internet has been a little slow today. So then you have all of these features up here, and I'm going to talk you through all of these features. So if you want to bold something, so for example, this looks like it's bolded. Bold is fine, not a problem. Italics, absolutely fine, not a problem. Underline. Do not underline anything in any of your pages. The reason why is a lot of people will underline something to emphasize it, and that doesn't work for a reader because it might read it as a website. So remember the websites would have that underline, so do not underline. Now here we have text color and we have background color. So some students are not blind, but they might be visually impaired. So they might not be able to differentiate between color contrast. So for example, you might be that person that you want to use the highlighter feature. So you're going to highlight that information with like a yellow, looks like a yellow highlighter. That will not work for somebody that's visually impaired. That's why for all of my classes, I recommend that what you do is that you have just black and white. You know, black and white is the easiest. Here it's blue, but I have no choice in that because when you create a link for something else, there's nothing you can do. That's the color that they give, and I'm assuming that that color is considered to be accessible. Okay, so again, make sure just don't do any fancy colors. You don't need that kind of stuff, and it doesn't work. Okay, now over here you have tables. So if you have kind of charts or tables. And I'm going to show you a feature that will let you know if it's accessible. But my recommendation for you, if you have a chart or a table, is that you use this button right here, and you can create how many cells, rows, and columns that you want. Because once you do it here, you'll be prompted to put in the rows and the columns. Because what you have to do is for the reader, the reader has to be able to pick up that this line, you know, is a row, and this line is a column, whichever way it goes. But if you just insert a chart into it, it may not pick that up. So my recommendation for you is to create your charts here. I don't use this one. Link to URL is the next one here, and I'm gonna cover that right now. So what you never want to do on a when you're inserting a website into your page, and just so you know, websites are separate. You know, most websites are pretty good because it's the law basically for websites to be accessible, but some people are not compliant. So just kind of be mindful of that. If you are sending students to a website, ask yourself why. You know, why do they need that content? Can you copy and paste the content to a page? Anytime you link to something else, you are taking a chance that's not accessible. So ask yourself, you know, what do you need from that? If you link to a YouTube video like what I have here, again, you have to verify that that YouTube video is captioned. Okay, so let's go. So I have, let's say, for example, let's go to YouTube for a sec. They might have to edit this out. Oops. So I have some videos here. So I'm into bonsai. So I have a big bonsai tree collection. If you've ever been into Huntington Gardens, I work at the trees at the Huntington Library. So this is the Ben Oki Nursery. So let's say, for example, I want to tell my students that I work with bonsai. So what you do is you copy your link. So whatever your external link is, you got to copy that. And then what you never want to do when you're creating a website is you never want to write www. Right? Because the reader will read it as that. What you want to do is you want to give it a title. You always want to direct students to where you're going to go. So click here doesn't really work. So let's say, for example, I would say, you know, look at the trees at the Huntington. Okay. So what I could do is maybe I could just put trees at the Huntington. So again, avoid click here, avoid entire websites. A lot of people would just copy and paste the website. That's not accessible. So what I would do is you highlight it. So again, remember I've already copied and pasted the YouTube video that I'm going to use. So again, I highlight it, and then you go to this chain right here. And a lot of times if you hover over it, you can see what it is. So the chain, think of the chain as a link. So that's why it's a chain. It's a chain link, and it's a link to URL. So what happens is you copy that, you click on that, and then it allows you to type in the URL. So I've already copied it. I hit paste, and it inserts the link. See how that works? So now the link is already there. So it will, so once I publish this, let me save it so you can see how that looked. So if we scroll down, so look at the trees at the Huntington. So you see how that looks. So now they know to click on that. The reader will identify that, and it embeds the video directly in there. Now, there is something else. Now, it's considered to be a higher level of accessibility, and then it depends. Like, this is a good start for all of you, but if you want to be truly 100% accessible for video content, technically you should also be including a transcription. So a lot of times if you have YouTube videos and they're captioned well, they do have a transcription that you can copy and paste. If you have your own videos, you can embed it. But also technically what you're supposed to do is there's a feature, and again, this is the next step. And allegedly what Canvas is going to do is they're going to make this easier to do. I didn't even know this existed until somebody told me about it about a month ago. Is if you hit Command K, oops. Maybe that feature doesn't work anymore. Maybe they're working on it, so never mind. But basically, there used to be something called Command K, and then you would click on it, and then what it would do. Let's try this. Oh, that's why, because I'm not in edit anymore. Let me go back down to that video. Okay. Okay, so what this does is if you hit Command K if you're on an Apple, or if you hit Control K if you're on a PC, it will bring up something like this. And what this basically asks you to do is that if a reader is going through this and it gets to this link, what it's going to do, it's going to give you the information that you had here, but it will tell them what they're looking at. So it will give some orientation to the students for what this video is. And it also gives it a title. So what that does is that adds a different level of accessibility. It's kind of like when you add an alt text, which I'm going to talk about in a sec. So alt text is when you describe an image for the content reader. This describes the link for the content reader as well. So again, there are two things that happen here when you have a video. You can do the link, and the link just does what I do here. Or you can do Command K, so you highlight it, and you put the link in, highlight it, hit Command K, and that will take you to more description, or Control K. So Command K for Mac, Control K for PC. Are there any questions on that? I know that's a little confusing, but if you just do the first thing that I did, you just kind of take your link here, whatever it is you want to talk about, and then hit the chain, and then put in your URL, you're good with that, okay? Because I'm pretty sure that Canvas is gonna have another feature in there where you click on that and allows you to put more content in it, but that's just an extra step, right? You're just learning the basics of this, so don't worry about it if you can't figure that one out. Are there any questions about that, Jan, that you see?
No, you nailed it with the difference between Windows and Macs, so that's good.
Okay. All right. So as we keep on down, so that's link to URL. Let's remove a link if you want to get rid of it. I just delete it. Embed image is important. So again, we've had a couple things so far. We've had the table. So tables have to be fully described. If you have a URL, you're going to use this one. And if you're up here, make sure that all of your content is not visually, make sure it stands out. All images. So if you have an image in your site at any point, that image has to have what's called an alt text. All that means is that you're telling the content reader to describe what that image is. Okay, so ask yourself, why do you have images? You absolutely want to have images. Images are great. There are many different ways that you can get images into your computer, so you can upload them, or you can go over I think you can insert edit media right here. So you can insert things right here. But if you already have an image, so see I have this image here. And what I do is if I click on this, and then I go to embed image, that tells me information about the image. So again, all I did was this assumes the image is already there. I click on it, I go to embed image, and that tells you what information is. But also if you want to embed an image, you can upload images right here too. So if I wanted to, if I don't have an image, but I'm teaching a biology class and I want to find images on biology, but I don't want to go through the process of going to a website and then downloading it and then uploading it to Canvas, you can go to Flickr right here and you can upload images right here that'll find images for you, and you can pull it in and it will embed it directly into your shell. Okay, but right now this assumes that I've already done this. Okay, so when a content reader goes through your program, it reads an image and it basically reads out loud. It says an image of. So you don't need to write the words an image of in here because it would basically be saying an image of an image of. So you have to ask yourself, what do you want this to say about this image? So it can just be, this is an image of a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, all great speakers. So that's all I do is I describe it. Now, let's say, for example, you just have an image that you like. It's pretty, it's decorative. It doesn't really mean much in terms of content for the course. This is considered to be accessible if you hit decorative image, okay? So you either have an alt text or you have a decorative image. Alt text describes what it is that they're looking at. Decorative image just tells the reader that it's just a nice picture and it doesn't mean anything for the course and it can bypass it. Okay, so just be aware of that. Another thing to be aware of as well is that when you upload any image to this, I think all of them now, I think Canvas automatically generates alt text for them. So you need to go through all of your images and make sure the alt text that you want is accurate. Okay, so that was that first one. So I have another image down here. It's a picture of my family, my boys. So again, I click on it. I go to embed image. And then it just says, it would read this as an image of a photo of Professor Miller and his two boys. Okay, describe the image to improve accessibility. So that's what it says right here. Okay, so all of your images need to have that description, and it's called an alt text. Do you see any questions on alt texts? Okay, I hope that's a good sign.
No. Sorry, I was on talking away. I'm on mute. No questions yet.
Okay, good. So then, what we do here is that we can kind of scroll them down. This is just kind of a heads up. If you're looking for some of your tools, this is what I talked about earlier. A lot of times what people don't realize, new things are popping up on my Canvas pretty much every week. I mean, I'm surprised at all the things that keep popping up. There's something just popped up on the left here called Pronto yesterday. I don't even know what it is yet. But just kind of a heads up, if you go to this little V right here, there are a lot of external tools that are available to you. So if you have a YouTube account that you've set up, you can access it here. If you have a Dropbox, if you want to access, Microsoft 365 and pull in documents, so any of these things that you can pull in. So remember I talked about 3C Media earlier. This is a website, this is 3C Media. So if I have a 3C Media account and I have my videos on there, I can just access my account right there and pull them right in. And also check out, if you're looking for different videos, you may or may not have these. Each campus has its own access and people get different things. But about 2 weeks ago, we got two things called Alexander Street Video and Films on Demand. And these are great. And I think all of them are captioned. You remember way back when you'd be in class, they'd have those big reels in the back and they'd play the films. Some of these are really old school videos. I found one from the 70s. It's fantastic stuff that they have. So check out what you have. Okay, so now, if you see my text here, right here, so I've gone past this size, you can have 12 point, you can have 24 font. That does not change accessibility. So what a lot of times people think is that if they have a bigger font, it indicates hierarchy. And in many ways it does, but it only indicates hierarchy to a person that can see, right? So if I'm looking at this page, I can see that it says class orientation, and this is kind of like, it's almost an outline structure, right? So this is my big one, this is my content. I can see here, okay, here's another section. And then I scroll down, here's another section. I can tell the sections visually. A reader won't be able to tell sections. They won't be able to identify the hierarchy unless you identify the hierarchy for it. And that comes in the form of what are called headers, okay? So a header, think of a header as just like an outline structure. Header 1 is the big one. Header 2 is the A. Header 3 is the one, the one, right? So basically you're laying it out for your audience. So whatever you have up here will always be your header 1. So when a content reader gets to this, it will identify this as a new page, most important information. If you're looking, then it'll read through this and they'll see it starts off with a quote. Then the reader will take us here and then it'll identify this as the second most important information. And that's called a header 2, okay? So notice this is your header area right here. Okay, this is your header area. I want you to see something. You notice how it says paragraph and then I click here, it still says paragraph. That means the content reader will read it as the exact same type of information. So if I truly want this information to stand out in the hierarchy, I would highlight that and I would go here and I would change it to header 2, okay? It changes the size and changing the size is completely fine. It can be bigger, it can be smaller. So if you change this, it ends up as a 24 and you want it as 18, that doesn't matter at all, okay? That's not germane to it, so. But then, so now look right here. So this is header 2. And then when I click down here, that's paragraph. So what it's basically saying is that here's the new section and here's the information under that section, okay? Then when I go down here, see how it says header 2 again. So that's another section. If I wanted a subsection, so let's say for example, I wanted class orientation, but I wanted who am I to kind of be a subsection in the hierarchy under class orientation, I would highlight that and I would make that header 3, okay? So if you're on a Word document, now you're probably gonna look at Word documents differently. If you're facing the Word document to the right on most of them, there are these little header buttons and it's the exact same concept. So if you have a Word document that you really, really like and you think, how do I make this accessible? Well, it's the same idea. If you have images, add alt text, add your headers, add your content in all those ways, okay? Any questions on headers?
I don't see any.
All right, I hope because it's so clear.
I hope so.
All right, so another question I get asked a lot is, what about lists? So if you have a list in here, what you don't want to do, where am I gonna put it? I'll put it right here. What you don't want to do is copy and paste a list, and you don't want to number the list because you don't need to. So let's say, for example, I have a list. Now, if I just copy and paste a list, or if I just add 1, 2, and 3, like so, for example, if I just do this. Now, to a course reader, that will not identify that as a list. Okay, what you have to do, just like you have to make this up here a header, you have to make a list. So don't add in your 1s and your 2s and your 3s down here. You don't need that. Okay, what you do is type in your list, highlight it, and go right here. Okay, so if you wanted a bulleted list, you would do that. If you wanted a numbered list, you would do that. Okay, so that makes the list for you and it makes it accessible. So when the course reader goes through it, it will say, okay, here is a list 1, 2, 3, or bullet point 1, bullet point 2. So it'll read it in that particular way for the students. Okay, so I'm going to do something. I'm going to take this off here and I want to show you something else. Okay, so now this is it should no longer be a list. And I'm going to get you someplace else from here. Okay, any questions on that? You can see, as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. As long as you understand where to look for it, it's pretty straightforward. It's just knowing. A lot of people, there's such a fear of accessibility. And I have to admit, I had that fear too. I remember sitting in a session, I was like, what is he talking about? All this stuff is really scaring me and intimidating me. And then I started to pay attention. I was like, oh, it's not that tough. All right, so then you have a feature over here, and just kind of a heads up. The word on the street is that this is going to be updated probably at the end of this month. So we will have sessions on the update. So some of these features may change, but what we have now is what we have. So there's this person right here. This is called the little person, or kind of reminds me of like the Da Vinci person. So what you do is if you click on this, this will check the accessibility of your page. So I click on that. Okay. Now, there are two issues here. Now, just kind of a heads up, heading levels should not be skipped. So basically what that means is I have multiple levels that aren't, the hierarchy is not in order. So I might have a 3 before a 2, okay? So what this does is that I can leave as it is, I can fix the heading hierarchy, or I can remove the heading style. So this gives you, so this will identify some of your accessibility issues. So this is gonna fix the heading hierarchy, and I apply it. Okay, so it fixed that, okay? Remember I did that list, and I kind of undid the list feature? This lets me know that I have a list problem here. So list should be formatted as list. So I format it as a list, and I apply it. Okay, so now this list, so now I have all these balloons, and that tells me that I'm accessible, kind of. You got to be careful of the balloons though, because it's exciting and you feel like you can have an accessibility party when you see the balloons. But one thing about balloons is that the balloons do not identify headers, and they do not identify content that links externally that is not captioned. Okay, they're good at lists. They're good at heading issues. So if you put headers, but they're in improper order, they can fix that. And it's also really good if you copy and paste a chart to it, and that chart is not accessible, it will fix that for you. So it fixes some things, but it doesn't fix everything. So be careful of that. Are there any questions? Come on, you're making me nervous.
Okay. So where is, remind us where the accessibility icon is. That's one.
That's actually a great question, because so a lot of times if your browser is a little bit small, so here's a perfect example. I attended an accessibility training with somebody, and I was watching it, and I was aware of the icon person. And so we went through the whole thing, and I said, what about the little accessibility checker? And she didn't know what I was talking about. And what had happened was, so even though she had done accessibility training, her browser was always so small, she never saw it. So you have to make sure that your browser is big enough to see it. So if you have a small browser, it's not going to pop up. So make sure you expand your browser all the way, and then you'll see it on the right there. Okay, that's one of the weird features of it. If you have to know where to look for it. So you see how it just kind of disappears like that.
Yeah.
So, and I've had it disappear before, and I thought, oh my gosh, where is it? And I went, oh, okay, there it is. So it's just right here.
Okay, and you may be getting into this next one. How accurate should video captions be? This person, Emma, she uses Canvas Studio, and the captions are 85% accurate. So what's the threshold?
So if I were speaking from our SSD, coordinator, I think he would argue that it needs to be 100%, and I think he would argue. So let's talk about that. So like Canva, there's also something called Yuja that some campuses are adopting, and YouTube. They're pretty accessible, and that's great. I mean, it's great that it's more than not, but just that video that you're watching, that's 85%, put some headphones on or something, and then watch it and see if you can understand the content, right? Because that's the most important thing. It's not about the percentage, it's about the understandability of the content. So if it lacks any kind of punctuation, or weird words pop up, or the transcription is kind of off, and they don't get the content, I would argue that's the threshold for accessibility. Now, ultimate accessibility would be, it is 100% accurate, and you have a transcript below it, because some people will just want to have it, they can read it as well. Now, the question I get asked a number of times is, what if it's not 100% accessible, but you have a transcript that's 100%? You know, for example, you have a YouTube video that you really like, but it's not 100% accessible, but you see that there's a transcript available and you edited it. That's not, you know, that you're putting that person in the position of having to watch the video in one area and then read it over here. So that's not considered to be accessible, but, you know, try the best you can and ask yourself, how well is this content understandable? Okay. Are there any more questions?
Not that I can see.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about syllabus. So this is not what my syllabus looks like anymore. This is what my syllabus used to look like. Oh, no, it is. It is my new version of the syllabus. Okay. So if you have external documents, so let's say you have a PDF document, or you have a PowerPoint, or you have a Word. The question that I recommend you ask yourself is, why is it linked out, and why is it not part of your content in your Canvas shell? So what I mean by that, when I first started teaching online, my syllabus was a syllabus I've been using for years. And when you clicked on my syllabus, it was just the document. It was like, here's my syllabus, and you click on it and it was a PDF that you can download. Then what I did is I just copy and pasted it too. So that's your better option. So if you have an external Word document, or you have an external PDF, is there a reason to have that external? So maybe it's a fill-in, or maybe there's something. If there is no reason, my recommendation is, instead of going through your old documents and making them accessible, you copy and paste that content to the pages here. So start a new page, copy and paste your syllabus to it, and then fix it in there, because you're going to have to do it anyway. Why not have it here? It makes it easier for the student because they can navigate it. It makes it more accessible. You have access to it. And also, when somebody's on their phone, you know, if a student's on their phone, they can click back and forth on their Canvas and they can go through it, as opposed to having to click out and then take them back out and then have to go back in. Okay. So that's just kind of a good guideline for when you're putting content in it. And while I'm here on syllabus, you notice that my syllabus is not just a bunch of information. So it used to be a copy and paste, and then students had to scroll through it. What I've done for my syllabus is I've broken it up into parts. So if a student wants to find out where the class textbook is, they don't have to scroll through the entire textbook or scroll through the entire page. Each one of these is a separate page. And while that does take a lot of work initially, once you have it done, it's great. And it's better for your students, because not only is my syllabus content here, my syllabus content is my first module. So when students come to my course, what they do is there's a direct link between the syllabus and all these. They just kind of scroll through it. Okay, so that's a really important. So again, I want to emphasize that. Well, so here's a good example, is that I had a page here. So in my class, the students have to write their own speeches before they deliver them. I teach public speaking. So what I originally had students do is they had to create their speech and upload it as a PDF. And actually, I still have them do that. But then when I provided sample speeches for my students, it was a PDF sample that students had to download. So what I did was, is to make it more accessible, and also just make it better for students in general, is I took those PDFs and I copied and pasted them to Word pages. Okay, so these are just regular pages. So instead of that PDF, I now have a fully accessible page for my students to access. Again, it does take a little while, but now I have it, and it's a fantastic thing. Are there any questions?
Not yet.
Okay. So the last thing, a lot of times people have lots of questions, so we could definitely do some questions at the end if people want me to review anything, because I'm close to being done. Is the way you lay out your course, because this is great for all students. It's not just great for students that needs accessibility accommodations. This is fantastic for all students. So if you look at my module, and this is an earlier version of a course. My latest version of a course, which I don't want to mess with right now because I've made that mistake of doing trainings and messing with the course, and then I accidentally publish it, is how you lay out your modules. I'm going to get a little bit more into modules if you want to attend a session on Friday. But you notice that my modules, what they do is they have objectives and they have directions. The most important thing that you can do for all of your students in accessibility, and I have to admit, it's not great here, it's pretty good, is consistency in creation. So what I mean by that is that every single module is going to start off with objectives, then maybe a discussion, then it builds up to an assignment. And what I'm doing now is I'm doing a post-module discussion. So what you're doing for your students is you're creating a sense of consistency and a sense of familiarity with your content. And it makes it easier for them to read your course, easier for them to navigate your course. And another good guideline for this is to have consistency in deadlines. So for those of you, you might have taught a Tuesday, Thursday class for the last 20 years. Your students know that they're going to class on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And they know that an assignment that they were going to hand to you way back when was due on a Tuesday or a Thursday. Now assignments are due random days. It could be a Friday, it could be a Thursday, it could be a Monday. And it makes it difficult for students to navigate. So think about how you create your modules, but also build into that consistency of deadlines. And that's going to make your students' ability to process and do better in your course so much better, so much easier.
So we do have a question now.
Okay.
Kent is wanting to know, how do we find the links to the Friday module section and future schedules?
So you go to 3csn.org.
Oh, that's what he meant. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So they're all there.
I could have answered that. I'm sorry. I thought he was talking. Sorry about that, Kent.
Yeah, so they're all there. So I'm gonna get a little bit deeper into modules. You can see what I'm working on for that. I've been doing a lot of training and I'm starting to assess other people's courses. So I probably have about 15 hours left in creating my course because I have to create what's called a showcase course. So in many ways, it has to be perfect in every way. So if you're interested, there's something that's called the OEI course rubric. So OEI course rubric. And that's like the model for what your course should look like. And it breaks down all the little elements that if you were to ever have your course reviewed by somebody like me, that's what I would be doing. So the course I'm looking at right now of one of my colleagues, is I'm going through the rubric piece by piece, and there's what's called section D. And section D is all about accessibility. So when I'm reviewing this course, I'm seeing issues. So I'm going through the YouTube videos in this course. I'm like, okay, that YouTube video is not accessible, but it has captioning. Like the very first video I saw on there didn't even have captioning at all. So that is not acceptable at all in that course. And that for a future course, that will need to be removed. Okay. Are there any other questions? You want me to review anything? Go back, slow down? What can I do for you?
Howard wants to know, how do we get 3C Media to caption our self-recorded or published videos?
So if you go to 3C Media, I think it's 3cmediasolutions.org, you create an account. And then if you just put, they have a search function there, and you just put captioning in that search function, they have their own internal videos on 3C Media that explain how to do it. So that's how I did it. I don't remember off the top of my head, but that's what I did. So you go there and they caption it. It's great. But one thing you have to be careful of, it depends. So 3C Media is funded by the State Chancellor's Office, and a lot of times funding runs out. So I think funding ran out in March, and then it just picked up again about 2 weeks ago. So if you're going to do that, get it in because the funding shifts from time to time. Okay. What else? You want me to review anything? I'm here.
I'm not seeing anything.
I'm here for you.
Yeah, all right. I put in the 3csn.org and the OEI course rubric. I'm going to be finding the link for the feedback survey and putting that in the chat so that you can help us get your feedback. So far, people are saying everything's very clear and helpful.
Okay. So then just I'll give you a little bit more information, then we'll sign off. It's kind of like getting out of class early. It's exciting. So if you do have a PDF document that you need to caption, just kind of a heads up, you're going to need Adobe Acrobat. So you will need a sort of a higher level program to caption to make that accessible. But there are documents. So you could literally Google how to make a PDF accessible. Or if you have a PowerPoint that you really want to use, same thing. So any of those things you can Google. There are also courses available. So if you ever were to go to the Canvas Commons, there are training courses. There's information available. So if you need more insight into how to make things accessible, there's a lot of other material out there. Okay. Stop share. Anything else? Well, have a good day. Maybe I'll see you on, just kind of a heads up on, so, another thing that we have through 3CSM is that they're called thought partner sessions. So if you kind of want more one-on-one, if you want to talk through some stuff, so if you go through the schedule, there are a bunch of them available. I'm doing one tomorrow at 3 p.m. Basically, I just kind of sit here and I answer questions if you need help with anything. And then Friday, I'm doing modules, but there are also tons of other ones if you want more insight into Zoom. There are a lot of great sessions here.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
I'll be sending the link to you all.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everybody. You're great. I'll stop recording.